13 motorcycle laws you've never heard of, but each one can drain your wallet or cost your license before you even hit third gear. Cross the wrong state line, and what was legal 30 seconds ago turns into a ticket. These aren't myths. They're real statutes that trap riders every day, from lane filtering to a bizarre ticket for simply running out of gas. Stay till the end, because the last hidden law will get you a ticket the next time you ride your bike. Number 13, lane filtering light. Picture yourself stuck at a never-ending traffic jam, boxed in by cars that seem frozen in time, engines humming like a restless hive. For many riders, this moment sparks the thought, why not just glide between them and escape? That single thought leads directly into the controversial and little-known rule commonly called lane filtering light, a regulation that exists only in certain states but changes the riding experience entirely. Lane filtering light, also known formally as the slow or stopped traffic filtering rule, allows motorcyclists to move carefully between lanes when vehicles are fully stopped or crawling at a very low speed. Unlike the broad concept of lane splitting, which permits weaving at various traffic speeds, this lighter version is intentionally narrow. It applies only in special scenarios, usually when traffic is backed up at a complete stoplight or locked into a jam where cars are barely moving. Lawmakers crafted it with safety in mind, attempting to prevent rear-end collisions where motorcycles trapped between heavy vehicles face serious danger. Historical context shows that the idea first gained traction in California during the 1970s and early 1980s, when crowded freeways created high accident rates for riders who had no escape option once pinned between bumpers. Over time, research suggested that controlled filtering at modest speeds reduced injuries. That evidence inspired other states such as Utah and Arizona to create their own versions, often with strict caps like 15 miles per hour maximum, or only when traffic is fully stopped at an intersection. Now that filtering gives a taste of freedom. Our next secret law proves that sometimes waiting endlessly at a light is not required either. Number 12, dead red relief. Imagine sitting at a silent intersection long after midnight, the road empty, your motorcycle engine idling like a caged animal, and the red light refusing to change. The frustration is immediate, but beneath that annoyance lies a legal quirk known as dead red relief, formerly called the traffic sensor non-detection exception. This rule acknowledges the unique challenges faced by motorcycles when confronted with outdated or insensitive traffic signal technology. Most traffic lights in the United States rely on magnetic induction loops buried beneath the pavement. These devices were originally calibrated decades ago for the weight and magnetic signature of full-sized automobiles. While they can easily detect a 2-ton sedan, they often fail to recognize the slimmer profile and lighter frame of a 650-pound motorcycle. That technological blind spot leaves riders stranded indefinitely at intersections designed for vehicles far larger than theirs. Dead red relief laws provide a remedy by allowing a rider to proceed through the intersection once specific conditions are met. Typically, the law requires a rider to wait what statutes describe as a reasonable time, often interpreted as roughly 120 seconds. After that waiting period, and only when the intersection is entirely clear and safe, the motorcyclist may legally continue forward despite the unchanging red signal. States such as Illinois, Missouri, and South Carolina have adopted variations of this principle, while others continue to debate it. Critics argue that it risks encouraging reckless behavior, but supporters emphasize that it restores fairness by preventing riders from being trapped indefinitely by flawed systems. The dead red law exists because many old intersections can't detect a motorcycle's lighter frame. States such as Illinois, Missouri, and South Carolina now let riders legally proceed through a red light after waiting a reasonable time, usually about 2 minutes, if the signal fails to change. My 2025 gear picks are linked below. The stuff I ride with, not sponsor junk. Number 11, always-on headlights. Picture the open road under a blazing summer sun. The sky is clear, visibility seems perfect, and yet the law in many states insists that your motorcycle headlamp must still be shining. This requirement, known as the always-on headlights rule, or formerly the daytime running or headlamp required statute, exists because visibility is more fragile than it first appears. Motorcycles, with their slender frames and compact profiles, vanish quickly into the blind spots of larger vehicles. Legislators discovered decades ago that requiring a constant headlamp dramatically reduced collisions, even during broad daylight. The origins of this law trace back to the 1970s when traffic safety researchers studied crash data from Europe and North America. They concluded that motorcycles with illuminated headlights during the day were noticed sooner by automobile drivers, cutting accident rates significantly. By the late 1980s, many states in the United States began enacting rules requiring headlights to remain on whenever the engine was running, regardless of time or weather. Newer motorcycles eventually adopted automatic daytime running lamp systems, while older machines still depend on a manual switch. Riders who forget to flip that switch may face fines, license points, or even orders to repair faulty equipment before being allowed back on the road. Nearly every U.S. state requires motorcycle headlights to be on whenever the engine's running, even on the brightest summer day. States like Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey strictly enforce it, citing visibility as the top lifesaver for riders. Out west, California and Oregon follow the same rule, often with daylight running systems built into newer bikes. A single burned-out bulb or forgotten switch can earn you a citation faster than a speeding ticket. Number 10. Plate must be lit. Late at night, when the highways are almost empty and the hum of your engine feels like the only sound in the world, one tiny detail can still draw the eye of law enforcement. That detail is the glow of your license plate, and according to a regulation widely enforced across the United States, that glow must come from a steady white light and nothing else. The law is straightforward but often ignored, and it is known formally as the white plate illumination and readability requirement. The rule exists to ensure identification, as officers' cameras and toll systems must read plates clearly, especially at night. Since the 1950s, unlit plates have been linked to accountability issues, prompting strict enforcement against modifications like light-emitting diode strips or tinted lenses. Some states require visibility from 50 feet and automatic activation with the engine. Colored or strobing lights risk heavy fines, while repeated violations in places like Texas, Georgia, or Arizona may even cause impoundment. Illumination rules might seem picky, but they reveal a broader truth. The smallest details on a motorcycle often carry the biggest legal weight. And as soon as you understand that, the next law makes it even clearer that orientation and placement of your plate can matter as much as the brightness of the bulb. Number 9. No flipped or vertical plates. Customization has always been part of motorcycle culture, but some creative modifications cross directly into the territory of illegality. One such example is the practice of flipping a license plate upside down, mounting it vertically along the fender, or tilting it at sharp angles to match a custom tail kit. While it may look unique, it collides headfirst with the law known formally as the horizontal, legible, unobstructed mount requirement. This regulation demands that a license plate remain fixed in a standard horizontal orientation, unobstructed, and easily visible to both officers and automated systems. The roots of this statute can be traced back to the 1940s and 1950s, when early highway patrols reported increasing difficulty identifying vehicles during high-speed chases or hit-and-run accidents. Lawmakers quickly recognized that tilted or altered plates hindered enforcement and delayed emergency investigations. Today, in the 21st century, the stakes are even higher because modern infrastructure relies heavily on camera systems. Traffic cameras, toll readers, and license plate recognition technology all require plates to be presented in a clear, uniform position. Any deviation, whether vertical, upside down, or hidden behind decorative frames, creates technical blind spots. Custom builds look cool until the law sees them. States such as California, Florida, and New York specifically prohibit flipped or vertical plate mounts under the horizontal and unobstructed rule. Even Texas and Georgia have written it into their codes, requiring the plate to be legible from 50 feet. Number 8. Feet on the pegs. Consider the simple act of stretching your legs while cruising down a long highway, boots dangling just inches above the pavement. To most riders, it feels harmless, even natural after hours on the road. Yet in many states across the United States, that seemingly innocent move is specifically prohibited under a statute officially modeled as the maintain control or feet on footrests requirement. This law demands that both the rider and any passenger keep their feet planted firmly on designated footrests whenever the motorcycle is in motion. The reasoning behind this rule is rooted in safety, as proper foot placement preserves balance, stability, and access to controls like the rear brake, while dangling feet suggest loss of command and can lead to fines or license points. In many states, stretching your legs while cruising isn't just unsafe, it's illegal. California, Texas, and Florida all enforce feet on the footrests laws to prove you're in control of your machine. Arizona and Washington follow suit, treating dangling legs as a sign of loss of balance. It's a tiny habit that can turn into a traffic stop, reminding riders that comfort never outranks control. Comfort on the open road matters, but lawmakers have declared that control matters more. Number 7. Passenger foot peg rule. Picture the moment when a friend asks for a quick ride on the back of your motorcycle. You nod, they climb on, and you roll away, never considering whether your bike is legally equipped for passengers. In many parts of the United States, however, this oversight could cost you more than just comfort. It could cost you in citations and fines. The passenger foot peg rule, formerly called the passenger equipment requirement, exists to ensure that no motorcycle carries a second rider without the proper gear installed. The foundation of this law is stability, as legislators recognize that passengers need proper footrests to maintain balance during acceleration, braking, or swerves, since one slip can destabilize the entire machine. Emerging in the 1950s as motorcycles shifted to two-up touring, statutes from the 1960s and 1970s required both a secure passenger seat and dedicated pegs, with luggage racks or padded fenders deemed unsafe and therefore non-compliant. If you ever carry a passenger, make sure your bike's ready for it. States like New York, California, and Ohio require dedicated passenger pegs and a proper seat before anyone hops on. Texas and Florida take it seriously too. No makeshift setups allowed. Strip your bike for style, and the moment you add a second rider, you've crossed into violation territory. Number 6. Eye protection required, even with a windshield. Imagine racing down a rural highway, the wind rushing past, confident that your tall windshield is shielding you from everything. In truth, many states still require protective eyewear, regardless of how large or expensive that windshield may be. This statute, formally recognized as the protective eyewear standard, makes it mandatory for riders to wear goggles, shatter-resistant glasses, or a helmet with an integrated face shield every time the motorcycle is in motion. The rationale is rooted in simple physics. A windshield deflects large gusts of air and blocks some debris, but it cannot guarantee that tiny particles, dust, or flying insects will never reach your eyes. A single pebble flung from the tire of a truck, or even a determined hornet, can blind a rider for crucial seconds. Lawmakers realized as early as the 1940s that eye injuries were contributing to preventable accidents, so they began drafting rules that insisted on impact-resistant eyewear for anyone operating a motorcycle on public roads. Even behind a windshield, most states want something guarding your eyes. New York, Georgia, and Minnesota demand DOT-approved goggles or a face shield for every rider, no exceptions. In Wisconsin and Kansas, the same rule applies unless your bike has a full coverage screen. Out west, Colorado and North Dakota enforce it too, especially at highway speeds where one bug can become a bullet. Officers interpret these laws with very little leniency, emphasizing that prevention outweighs convenience. The cost of a proper set of riding goggles is minimal compared to the consequences of temporary blindness at highway speeds. Now that your face has been secured by mandatory protection, our journey turns back to your motorcycle's rear end. Number 5. No riding in disguise. Picture yourself suiting up for a ride on a chilly evening, pulling a balaclava over your face or tying a bandana across your nose to keep warm. While it feels practical and even stylish, in certain jurisdictions this action can be interpreted as a violation of the anti-mask or concealment while operating rule. This law makes it illegal to obscure your identity while operating a motorcycle, regardless of whether you are riding through a crowded city or a quiet country road. The origins of this regulation go far beyond traffic safety. During the mid-20th century, several states enacted anti-mask laws to address public safety concerns connected to protests, criminal activity, and organized groups that concealed their faces. Lawmakers extended the concept to vehicles, including motorcycles, because hidden identities created obstacles for law enforcement during investigations, traffic stops, or accident reports. While helmets themselves are not banned, any covering that hides facial features, such as costume masks, novelty helmets with complete visors, or even simple fabric wraps, may fall under the restriction. There are narrow exceptions, usually tied to religious practices or documented medical conditions. For example, coverings worn for faith traditions or for respiratory protection in certain climates may be exempt. However, the burden of proof often lies with the rider, and officers may still issue a citation if the covering appears purely cosmetic. Number 4. Side-by-side formation limits. Think about the thrill of riding shoulder to shoulder with a close friend, the two of you sharing the same lane, engines roaring in harmony, looking like a united wall of chrome and steel. While this formation feels natural in motorcycle culture and looks cinematic on open roads, in several states across the United States, it is considered a violation under the side-by-side formation limits law, formally recognized as the single file or staggered-only requirement. This statute prohibits motorcycles from riding directly adjacent within the same lane, demanding instead that they maintain a staggered or strictly single-file formation. Riding shoulder to shoulder looks cinematic, but not everywhere allows it. Montana, Arkansas, and Oklahoma insist that motorcycles stay in staggered or single-file formation. In contrast, states like California, Texas, and Florida let two bikes share a lane if there's room to maneuver safely. It's a reminder that what's a parade in one state is a violation in the next. When traditions collide with statutes, it is always the law that prevails. And if lane sharing with a friend is restricted for safety, the next secret law raises the stakes even further by focusing not on groups, but on individuals who lift their front wheel skyward in the name of thrills. Number 3. No public road wheelies. Few sights grab attention faster than a motorcycle rearing up on one wheel, the front end pointing skyward as the rider balances on raw skill and throttle. For spectators, it looks thrilling and bold, but for lawmakers and officers, it represents recklessness in its purest form. Across many states, the practice of lifting the front wheel off the ground on public roads is banned under the statute formerly known as the both wheels on ground or reckless operation requirement. This law dictates that both wheels must remain in contact with the pavement at all times when riding on streets, highways, or other public rights of way. The origins of this restriction can be traced back to the 1970s and 1980s, when stunt culture flourished on American highways. Riders inspired by daredevils such as Evel Knievel attempted wheel stands during commutes in crowded traffic scenarios. The result was a rise in crashes, hospitalizations, and costly insurance claims. Legislators responded by categorizing wheelies as a form of reckless operation, linking them to impaired steering, diminished braking power, and increased risk of collisions with surrounding vehicles. Penalties vary but are often harsh. Riders caught performing a wheelie can face fines amounting to several $100s, license points, and even jail time in extreme or repeated cases. Pop that front tire for the crowd, and the law calls it reckless driving. Illinois, Florida, and Texas specifically classify wheelies as unsafe operation, and Maine and Pennsylvania follow similar rules. Number 2. No wild animal passengers. Envision the image of a rider thundering down the road with a sidecar carrying something other than a human companion, perhaps a monkey, a wolf, or even, according to some statutes, a full-grown gorilla. While this scene sounds like it belongs in a circus act or a comedy sketch, lawmakers have addressed it very seriously through the Transport of Dangerous or Wild Animals Prohibited statute. This law explicitly forbids motorcyclists from carrying wild, untrained, or dangerous animals as passengers on public roads. The motivation behind this rule stems from public safety and unusual historical incidents. In the early 1900s, exotic pets often appeared on roads, and reports of panicked animals causing chaos led to restrictions. It sounds like an urban legend, but places like Massachusetts, New York, and Ohio really do have statutes or ordinances forbidding riders from carrying wild or untrained animals. California also enforces similar public safety rules under animal transport codes. It might make for a funny photo op, but a monkey or dog clinging to your tank can turn a ride into a citation. This unusual regulation highlights a larger truth about motorcycle laws. Many were drafted in response to strange but real events. Someone, somewhere, attempted these acts. Number 1. Out-of-gas offense. Visualize the nightmare of cruising through a busy downtown street, only to feel your engine sputter, cough, and finally fall silent because your fuel tank has completely run dry. While most riders see this as nothing more than an embarrassing inconvenience, in certain jurisdictions, it is classified as a violation under the stopping or obstructing roadway due to fuel depletion law. This statute treats running out of gas on a public roadway as an offense because it transforms your machine into a stationary hazard that disrupts traffic flow and endangers both you and other motorists. The origins of this regulation trace back to city ordinances established in the early 20th century. As urban centers grew more congested during the 1930s and 1940s, stalled vehicles were increasingly blamed for accidents, traffic snarls, and costly delays in emergency response. Lawmakers responded by creating penalties for drivers and riders whose lack of fuel preparation resulted in roadway obstructions. Youngstown, Ohio is often cited as one of the most famous examples, where ordinances specifically prohibit motor vehicles, including motorcycles, from halting due to an empty tank. The penalties are not lighthearted slaps on the wrist. Riders may face citations, towing charges, and in some cases, additional fines related to obstruction of traffic. Enforcement officers argue that motorcyclists who already operate vehicles with smaller fuel capacities, sometimes only 3 to 5 gallons, have an even greater responsibility to plan ahead. Unlike cars with larger tanks, motorcycles can run dry faster, which lawmakers consider preventable negligence rather than unavoidable misfortune. This statute serves as a reminder that the freedom of the open road still carries obligations of foresight and responsibility. A 700-pound touring motorcycle pushed uphill toward the nearest station is not only exhausting, but potentially dangerous. With this final law revealed, the full countdown shows how details, both big and small, can determine whether a ride stays free or turns into an expensive legal entanglement. You've just uncovered 13 secret motorcycle laws that most riders never even hear about until it's too late. Some of them were strange, some were frustrating, but all of them can change the way you ride tomorrow. Knowledge is your best protection. Your wallet, your license, and even your freedom depend on it. If this breakdown opened your eyes, smash that like button, share it with another rider who needs to know, and hit subscribe so you never miss the next countdown. Because on this channel, we ride smarter, stronger, and always one step ahead of the law.